Hello and welcome to episode 98 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on the stream of dreams, the shows, and everything in between. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram Threads. I am all over the place. Ethan in chat with yes. Thank you so much for hanging out in the Twitch chat. If you are hanging out, thank you so much for watching this on YouTube. If you are more of a video on demand person, though there are video on demand services available on Twitch, if that is your thing. And then for those that just want that audio sound and no video accompaniment, that's okay. I'm not offended. Thank you for joining me. Wow. Summer Game Fest has come and gone, and what we are left with is a huge amount of news in terms of game reveals and game announcements and things like that. How would I put this? I watched a lot of those press conferences, those videos, whatever you want to call them. I watched a lot of them. I watched Summer Game Fest. I watched Day of the Devs. I watched the Devolver Digital one. I watched the Future Games show. I also watched the Xbox showcase, and I watched the Ubisoft Forward. I didn't get around to watching some of the other ones, the cozy games and things like that. I also didn't watch Future of Play. So I missed out on quite a few showcases and events during Summer Game Fest. But, in fairness, there were a lot of them. They were happening kind of all day in a lot of cases, like Saturday, Sunday, Friday. Like it was on like Donkey Kong, with the exception being no Nintendo at Summer Game Fest, which I think was to be expected considering they're trying to get a console out the door for next year, delaying games left, right, and center, not announcing games left, right, and center. Similarly with how Sony kind of approached kind of the summer game announcements this year, in the sense that they had their state of play like a week ago, and it was a 30-minute thing, and it was pretty low key, all things considered. They didn't have the 2-hour blockbuster event that like Microsoft had. Ethan in chat saying they like my style. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So what we're going to do is we are going to run through Summer Game Fest, the kicked off the event, Day of the Devs, Future Games Show, Future Games Show Summer Showcase, everything that was at the big Xbox Showcase and the Ubisoft Forward. Also have some updated information about two games. I don't have like a lot of the news is those events and stuff like that, but there are some updates on Dragon Age the Veilguard as well as Metallica in Fortnite. We'll have more to say in a moment. And then the other thing I wanted to say was I've been playing a ton of games as part of the Steam Next Fest. So if you were watching a lot of the showcases, especially the indie ones, a lot of games currently have demos available on Steam. I've been playing a bunch of those, including Parcel Core, Old School Rally, Aero GPX, Victory Rally, Heel Told, Flintlock, World's Worst Handyman. Thank goodness you're here. I played a bunch of those as well. So just a jam-packed episode today. Thank you for checking it out because we have a lot to get to. And we're going to kick things off with the show that kind of kicked a lot of things off, which was the Summer Game Fest 2024 showcase. So I think how I want to approach this is, new announcements, like the new stuff that was there. There were plenty of games that were kind of shown off that had already been announced and things like that. So in some cases I might lightly touch on some of the things that we already know about. But they kick things off showing off Lego Horizon Adventures, kind of following up on the physical Lego sets that you can buy that are based on the Horizon Zero Dawn, Horizon Forbidden West stuff. So it looks like a Lego game, if that is your thing. Coming to PS5, PC, and even Switch, which is, surprising for a PlayStation. I mean, it's not technically like a PlayStation game in the sense that it is a Lego game literally has Lego at the start of it. So this is not Horizon Lego Adventures. This is Lego Horizon Adventures. So, that looked like, kind of a top-down building action adventure sort of thing. Typically what you'd expect from Lego. For those in chat, just chat it up and, just speak up. And if you need me to address something, I can definitely take a look as we go through the list of stuff here. No More Room in Hell 2 announced, the zombie first-person action game. I didn't play No More Room in Hell 2. There are a lot of games like this, zombie, spooky first-person action stuff. So to that I say, hey man, maybe No More Room in Hell 2 is going to be awesome. I remember the first No More Room in Hell being a free game. If I remember, that was a free game on Steam. Very curious to see how No More Room in Hell 2 shapes up, but maybe not necessarily the game that I would be jumping out of my seat to play. They took out the Hogwarts. They took out the Hogwarts. No, they didn't touch the Hogwarts. They took out the Quidditch in Hogwarts Legacy, and the idea was they were going to bring it back with its own standalone game, the second standalone Quidditch game in the Harry Potter franchise. That is Harry Potter Quidditch Champions, launching September 3rd, PS5, Xbox Series, consoles, and PC. That's also going to be a PS Plus day one thing, so I don't think this is going to be a full-priced game. If I had to guess, this is probably going to be close to a $30, $40 game, and then the microtransactions and the live service and the battle passes and all that shit. But hey, if you have PS Plus, that's something to look forward to. Again, that's September 3rd. I got a little ahead of myself. No More Room in Hell 2, coming in early access on PC, October 2024. Cuff Bust, which is a first-person breaking out of prison multiplayer game, sometime in 2025. Didn't have a lot to say. Speaking of things that didn't have a lot to say, at least at the Summer Game Fest showcase, was Star Wars Outlaws. They briefly showed off a tiny bit of gameplay, tiny bit of story, and then basically said, hey, check out the Ubisoft Forward in 2024. There was more updates on Neva. That is the follow-up game from the developers of Gris, the lady walking with the deer fox animal thing, and there's sword swinging combat for those that are interested. They announced Civilization 7, which is going to be coming to both consoles and PC in 2025. Black Myth Wukong finally set to arrive August 20th of this year. Once Human, which is the kind of co-op multiplayer survival shooter, is finally coming out July 9th. I downloaded the demo for that. I did not get a chance to play it. That was one of the few things demo-wise that I did not play. Metaphor, which is from the folks that brought you Persona 3, 4, and 5, which is, they kind of showed off their they kind of combat archetypes and their kind of job system and class system and stuff like that. But that game's out, fairly soon, October 11th, 2024. Street Fighter 6, they showed off Terry Bogard and M. Bison and some Fatal Fury characters that are going to be coming to Street Fighter this year. Tears of Metal is this like weird Scottish cooperative strategy action game. Looks kind of neat, but also looks a little weird, which is nothing wrong with looking weird. It just looks weird. For all my anime fans out there, lend me your power, because Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, the next game in the Budokai Tenkaichi series, is coming out October 11, 2024. I'm not going to go out of my way to pick on this game, but there's a reason why this game was probably shown when it was, before the Black Ops trailer and all the Black Ops stuff, because Delta Force Hawk Ops sounds like a fake video game. The Delta Force series is a long-running series. I'm not here to pick on that. But if you told me that like there was an episode of Law and Order fucking Special Victims Unit where the victim was like addicted to playing violent video games, and it's like, oh, they've been playing nothing but Hawk Ops and that's what encouraged them to like do the crime or whatever, I would believe it. They also said that they are going to be taking inspiration from the film Black Hawk Down for its campaign, which I like Black Hawk Down. I think Black Hawk Down is a tremendous movie. I would actually put Black Hawk Down as both one of my favorite war movies or one of my favorite action movies. It's a tremendous film. Do I need to play through the story of Black Hawk Down in a shooter that looks so run-of-the-mill and so half-baked? Maybe not, but that is something to look forward to if for whatever reason you can't or don't want to play Call of Duty Black Ops 6. They give an update for Fatal Fury City of Wolves. That is early 2025. Isometric character-based combat, Battle Crush. They showed off some of that. Mecha Break, a game that continues to look like Gundam but is not Gundam, was also shown off at Summer Game Fest. Blumhouse Games, one of my favorite things shown at all of Summer Game Fest, in my opinion. And when we talk about Summer Game Fest, I'm talking about like the entire week that we had, not just the Jeff Keighley Summer Game Fest showcase. Blumhouse Games announced that they are getting into the publishing of video games. They announced a handful of titles that to be shown off. Their first game, Fear the Spotlight, is expected to come out later this year in 2024. Now, for those that are wondering, they are doing this in a pretty, from all that I've seen, like a pretty safe and slow way, because Fear the Spotlight is actually an old game. So what's happening now is that Blumhouse Games is helping to kind of finance and produce an update for Fear the Spotlight. So they're going to get additional story content, stuff like that in Fear the Spotlight. Fear the Spotlight has also been taken off of, stores. So you originally could buy Fear the Spotlight on Steam prior to the announcement of this. If you own Fear the Spotlight, you're going to get, already you're going to get that update as part of it. If you don't, then Fear the Spotlight will be back up for sale later this year. No exact date announced. That is kind of the atmospheric third-person horror adventure game. And if I could just say something at the start, a lot of these indie games now are taking a lot of influence from PlayStation 1 games. You're gonna notice that as I talk later on in the show about some of the games that I played as demos. But what we're seeing now is, if you are nostalgic for that kind of early 3D graphics, that early polygonal graphics of something like a Resident Evil or Motor Tune Grand Prix, or rally racing games and stuff like that of the PS1 era, I think that's where we're at with a lot of indie games. In the past, we saw indie games taking a lot of influence from the 16-bit and 16 and 8-bit original Nintendo, Super Nintendo games, Genesis games and stuff like that. I'm not saying that like indie games aren't still taking influence from that, but now it seems like we have a generation of developers that kind of grew up with their first games or early gaming memories, and sort of some of their strongest gaming memories being attributed to something like the PlayStation. So if you're sitting around being like, oh, damn it, they don't make PlayStation 1 games like they used to, especially, survival horror games in general. Again, they kind of go for that like very rudimentary, almost this idea that like the graphics are bad. I'm not saying the graphics are bad, because they're clearly going for something here. But I think in a scenario where, it's almost like you kind of in something that is a bit of at times crude 3D, graphics, your imagination kind of fills in the blanks. And I think that actually works out really well, and especially if something like horror. So Blumhouse Games announced a handful of games as part of their lineup of publishing games. Fear the Spotlight, their first game, coming out later this year. They also said, hey, we're working on Five Nights at Freddy's 2, the movie, which in my opinion got a pretty weak response. I just don't think the audience that show up for Summer Game Fest necessarily are going to be that excited about any time dedicated to video game based movies, especially one that from all things that I've heard maybe wasn't that amazing in the case of the first Five Nights at Freddy's. Speaking of things that hit the nostalgia, Power Rangers, we're talking Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, which by all accounts I believe are the original Power Rangers. Those are the ones that I'm the most familiar with. Let me tell you about Zach's birthday. Zach, was that the Black Power Ranger? I think that was. I think he had a birthday, and I watched that episode. I didn't watch a ton of Power Rangers when I was a kid, but I'm definitely familiar with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Rita, they're getting their own retro style beat 'em up action game called Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. That looks like a lot of fun. You know what? I'm not always in the mood for that sort of, old school brawler beat 'em up sort of thing. It's just, one of those scenarios where I think those games worked really well in the arcade, your Simpsons arcade game and all that stuff. I think in a scenario where you are not at the risk of running out of quarters, I think it's pretty easy to find out just how thin of a game those can be. But that's out later this year from your friends and mine at Digital Eclipse. And I got to say, it looks pretty neat, if anything else. Speaking of 2D side-scrolling sad games where the main character has an animal as their companion, I'm not talking Neva, I'm talking Deer and Boy. That was shown off at Summer Game Fest. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. No, this is not a sequel to the movie Deliverance. This is a sequel to Kingdom Come. The first-person historical RPG showed off a lot of sword fighting, bow and arrow shooting, and also a lot of profanity, a lot of swearing and stuff like that. I think it has a decent kind of tone and vibe to it. I liked what I saw of Kingdom Come Deliverance. I briefly played that first game. I did not get very far in it, but maybe I should give it a chance as far as, RPGs and all that stuff. What I'm going to quickly do is I'm also going to mark down stuff from the showcase because those are the things that I'm the most excited about. So just give me a moment here. I might even do this during the break as well. Just so I can keep myself honest, keep myself in check of like what I'm excited about, what I'm not excited about, because I think we're going to do kind of a rundown of some of my favorite things towards the end of the show. You know what? This might work better as a break situation. A game that sounds dirty when I say it, Slitherhead. It's not Slitherhead, it's Slithered. I'm not going to keep pronouncing it. That is the new game from the folks who made Silent Hill. And I had no idea what this game was. They had announced it. Everyone's talking about Slitherhead. And I'm like, stop saying the word. It just sounds bad. But it is a demonic combat action game from the sounds of things. It also seems like you are kind of taking control of different characters, possessing characters and stuff like that. That's kind of where the demonic presence comes from. It looks neat. It also looks like a game that, it kind of has a bit of a budget vibe and look to it. And I think the idea is that Slitherhead is harkening back, from everything I saw, is harkening back to, the types of, PS1 and PS2 games that you just don't see anymore in terms of like, wow, this is a really weird horror game that like you just don't see that much of these days. And I think that's kind of what Slitherhead is going for. It looks neat. Very curious to see how that checks out. A game that I'm going to put as one of my most anticipated games on from Summer Game Fest, the showcase, Killer Bean. What a weird. So when I first started watching the trailer for Killer Bean, I was like, oh, this is like an ad for like DoorDash or Uber Eats or something, because there's no way that this is a real video game. It just looks so ridiculous. It looks so silly. The tone of it is just so wacky that this must be like like basically this killer bean is gonna jump out of this car and shoot a bunch of other beans or whatever, and then it's gonna be like, get 40% off your Uber Eats order. You gotta bean it or whatever. Like I just looked at it and I'm like, this is not a real video game. But it is in what looks like a mix between Grand Theft Auto, Max Payne, and a little bit of first-person shooting as well. Killer Bean lets you take on the role of Killer Bean. He is an elite killer out for some revenge. And I know this isn't primarily an audio and video podcast. I'm not going to throw the trailer up there. If you have not seen Killer Bean, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch the trailer for Killer Bean. Karen, the climbing puzzle adventure game was also shown off at Summer Game Fest. Wander Shop. This is from the folks that made the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide. I fucking love the Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide. Such brilliant, fantastic first-person adventure games. Really, really brilliant stuff. So when I heard that they're making this new game, Wander Stop from the folks that made the Stanley Parable. Really looking forward to it. However, there does seem to be a twist to it. The idea is that you are kind of it's like a farming sim action game where you're also running a tea store. But it seems like there's like a dark twist to the game that they kind of alluded to in the trailer. Looked really neat. Curious to see how that shakes up. Unknown 9 Awakening was also shown off at Summer Game Fest. Antoria, The Last Song, which looks to be one of those Souls-like action games, if that is your thing. The First Descendant is the free-to-play looter shooter. Really looking forward to playing The First Descendant. I got some friends and stuff texting me being like, I don't always want to play like a free-to-play shooter and stuff like that, but The First Descendant looks neat. That's out in 2 weeks, July. Looking forward to checking that out. Inner Sloth, the folks that made Among Us, had a really cool announcement. I'm really excited about kind of what they're working on. They announced that they're going to be helping to publish and fund a lot of other indie games. Among Us, one of the biggest, most popular, successful games out there right now. It's getting its own TV show through Paramount Plus and stuff like that. And they announced that they want to kind of pay it forward and help publish and fund other indie game development. So they showed off a bunch of games on the horizon as well. Super awesome. They also kind of talked about the idea that it's a rough time for the game industry, right? We're having these big showcases, the bright lights, all the glitz and glamour and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, funding for games is pretty low these days, whether that be AAA game development or whether that be something like, indie development. So to have a successful indie team like Inner Sloth, kind of take the ball and run with it and try to, leave the game development world a better place than they found it, I think is a tremendous idea. Really looking forward to them. Sonic X Shadow, Sonic X Shadow or I guess it's Sonic Cross Shadow Generations, was shown. That's October of this year, if that is your thing. Dune Awakening, they kind of showed off a little bit of Dune Awakening and the story behind it. The idea being that they're going to try to split the timeline of things that happen in Dune. And listen, I saw Dune Part 1, I saw Dune Part 2. I am not a Dune expert, but I guess the idea is in order to justify what they're calling an open world survival MMO, they need to split the timeline. So that's exactly what they're going to do. Battle Aces was shown off. It bills itself as an RTS. That's a real-time strategy game for everyone. Curious to see how that shapes up. The Finals is now hit season 3, and they are talking about new weapons and gadgets coming out June 13th, which is today. Alan Wake 2, they announced 2 things for Alan Wake 2. The physical edition of the game is finally coming. It is going to be like a limited collector's edition, and the Night Springs DLC, which is out now. You're going to be able to play as Rose, Tim Breaker, and Jesse Faden. Jesse Faden, of course, from the Control games, the main protagonist of Control. And the idea is that it's kind of this mix-up of, we took this character, put them in this environment, and kind of mix things up. Night Springs, if you don't know, is the kind of fake TV show from Alan Wake, very much inspired by stuff like Twin Peaks and The Twilight Zone. That's what they're going for. That's why it looks so weird, which I'm saying it looks weird. It is still an Alan Wake game, so of course it's going to be weird. New World is coming to consoles and getting an expansion. Dark and Darker is the dungeon crawling game for those that need to crawl through dungeons. Kiritsu Gami Path of the Goddess, that's the new sword fighting role-playing game from Capcom. Hyper Light Breaker was shown off. That game is very stylish and very cool. Looking forward to it. Another game that I'm going to put on I am skipping over some games, I apologize. A game that I'm going to put on one of my most anticipated is Skate. They had our funny man Tim Robinson out there. And if you watch the trailer for the Skate game and you didn't know anything about the development of Skate, if you didn't know what was going on, you would probably say, this doesn't make any sense. Like, why is Tim Robinson here? What the fuck is going on? And the idea, I guess, in the story of Skate is that this big mega corporation, M Corp, owned the city of Skate, owned the city in which Skate takes place in, and has decided to abandon it, which is why it's kind of being taken over as a skater's paradise and stuff like that. But the other thing is that trailer is talking about how, like, oh, everything's fine, everything's under control, we're doing great. And then, like, you know, Tim Robinson turns his head and sees like somebody crying and all this stuff. And that's a joke on, I'll explain the joke because jokes are funnier when you explain them. But that's a joke on how long Skate has been in development and how long people have been waiting for this game and wondering what the hell's going on. Also, I learned in that trailer that Tim Robinson is also a skateboarder himself, which is super neat. Looking forward to seeing Tim Robinson in that game. I'm assuming they got him for the game. And I've learned actually that quite a few, or I should say quite a few, at least two celebrities, funny people I know, were skaters, because the guy who was in My Name is Earl, his name escapes me at the moment, but you know the show My Name is Earl. Everyone knows the show My Name is Earl. He was also a skateboarder, and he played Coach Frank in the Skate games. Anyways, Tim Robinson talking about Skate, which is neat. Monster Hunter Wilds showed off more of Monster Hunter Wilds. People in chat just keep asking if they can say something instead of just saying what it is that they want to say. So go, if you want to say something, just say it. And they showed the final game that they showed at Summer Game Fest was the Phantom Blade Zero. Very much a Souls-like action game. You're parrying, you're dodging, and all of that stuff. Not the most exciting thing that I would have maybe ended Summer Game Fest with. Wasn't the thing that really lit my fire, but Souls-like games are very popular still. It is a technically very pretty game as well. You know, so for those who need more Souls games in their life for whatever reason, I know that Elden Ring expansion is out very soon. I don't know why you wouldn't just play that, but whatever. If you need more of that, they're giving more of it to you as part of Summer Game Fest. But yeah, Phantom Blade Zero was the thing that ended the show. And, you know, let's talk about the show as a whole. This is going to be a long episode anyway, so what are you going to do? But, you know, Jeff Keighley kind of went out there and said at the start, hey, you know, this is a show dedicated to showing games that have already been announced and are close to coming out. And that's exactly what they gave. And I am totally fine with that. I think that when you factor in the games that are coming out this year, and whether it be AAA games or indie games, as we'll kind of go along, I think there's enough new stuff coming out this year. Like, it didn't seem like it going into Summer Game Fest. You're thinking, shit, well, they better have some stuff for, you know, like the big games for September, October, November. Like, there better be big games the way big games typically come out in the fall. And I think that was more or less something that, you know, Summer Game Fest as a whole delivered on. When we look at the Summer Game Fest showcase, I thought it was okay. Like, I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. There were a couple of awkward, you know, kind of swings left and right. You know, like, I broke down pretty much everything as it happened. So you can imagine the scenario where, like, Blumhouse is talking about, like, oh, we're getting into games and, you know, all this cool shit, horror, whatever. And then fucking Power Rangers starts playing right after. And you're like, oh my God, the swings left and right on this show are just so weird and wild and crazy. But I think that's like kind of the nature of the beast, right? Is like, they can't just do, oh, here's all the horror games, and then here's all the action games, and here's all the sad games where you walk from left to right with an animal companion games. Like, they just can't do that. They need to have a flow that goes in and out, right? Some games can get more time than others. Some games aren't, right? So I'm okay with it. It does lead to some pretty hard, weird swings left and right. But for the most part, I thought Summer Game Fest was okay. The most obnoxious thing about Summer Game Fest, besides the ads for fucking DoorDash and Samsung monitors and shit, there was an ad for a free-to-play game that involved Ken Jeong, actor, funny man Ken Jeong, in a chicken suit. It went on forever. I don't know how long that trailer was. I don't know how long that ad was. That thing went on for way too long. At some point, they're singing in a car, talking about fucking Nickelback, and I couldn't even tell you what the game was about, because it was just a bunch of celebrities dressed up in weird costumes. Ken Jeong was there, and that's obnoxious. I think it continues to be a problem with both the Game Awards and Summer Game Fest, and probably to some extent Gamescom Opening Night Live, where when they put an ad into the show, which in fairness, these are all ads, right? Like Blumhouse advertising their games, like it's all ads. Like this, if you watched Summer Game Fest, you watched a giant ad that's no different than the Super Bowl. It's no different than fucking WrestleMania or any of that stuff. You watched a giant advertisement, because that's the world we live in. Marketing and advertising runs the world. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just calling it as I see it, right? So Blumhouse and Power Rangers and all this stuff and Deer and Boy, indie stuff, like it's all ads. But I think when they put the most negative advertising into something like Summer Game Fest, it can really throw the show off a little bit, which is what I kind of ran into watching something like Summer Game Fest compared to something like Day of the Devs and all of that stuff as well. Speaking of Day of the Devs, that did kick off right after Summer Game Fest. They showed off Simpler Times, which is a kind of puzzle game, vibe puzzle game that's out now for those that are interested. Battle Vision Network is the next game from the folks at Capybara Games. They made Grindstone and Below. It is a multiplayer game. You don't often see a lot of multiplayer indie games, but it's kind of acting as the spiritual successor to Clash of Heroes, where players compete in 1-versus-1 matches, taking turns launching attacks to create color-matched formations of units in attack or defense formation. Kind of this strategy meets puzzle game meets multiplayer game. They showed off more Karen as well, you know, kind of getting into the story and the inspiration behind the idea of climbing and how difficult they want climbing the mountain to be. Pedal Runner, very much a Game Boy Advanced, RPG from Nanopark Studios. Very retro, very throwback. It looked super old school. And it's a lot of you, powering up virtual pets, riding around on a bike. Very chill, looked very neat. If that is your thing. Karma the Dark World, which is from China-based studio, Pollard Studio. Karma the Dark World is a first-person narrative game where you play as a man named Daniel, who exists in a dystopian version of the real world in 1984, where he, as an agent of the Leviathan Corporation, dives into people's minds and uncovers the truth behind events. Over the course of the story, he will find his loyalty to the company challenged by what he discovers, and those discoveries seem pretty upsetting. It very much going for a mind-bending, horror-based game. Karma the Dark World looks really, really neat. Again, one of the most striking games that I saw in all of Summer Game Fest, in my opinion. And then it was followed up by another game that also was one of the most exciting games that I saw at Summer Game Fest. I'm talking UFO 50. It is a love letter to classic, old school games, retro games. And it is, when you hear, they put 50 games in one, you think, these games aren't going to be very exciting. They're not going to be very different from each other. But the reason this game has taken so long is because they tried to make 50 different old school themed retro games, put it into one collection called UFO 50 that also tells the story of a fictional game company called UFO Soft. Looks just awesome. Some games are arcade games, some games are larger adventure games in different genres and styles. And also the idea is that like these games start from a certain period of time and actually advance and grow more complicated as you progress through the history of the company. All those games will be unlocked at the start of the game, so you don't need to play through the game in order to unlock the different games. It's all from the start, but if you play through it in a certain order, you will kind of uncover the story of this fictional company. That game looked fantastic. I was really blown away. I'm not always someone who's a sucker for retro games, but I thought that looked really, really neat. Cozy Grove is getting a follow-up game called Camp Spirit. Looks more like Cozy Grove, you know, collecting materials, crafting, building. It's also going to be coming exclusively to Netflix games. That'll be out June 25th of this year. That's very, very soon. Koira. I don't remember exactly what Koira was. I need to look at it again. Oh, that's the snowy, that's like the snowy, kind of black and white adventure game, top-down adventure game. Looked kind of cute, looked all right. A game that really broke my brain was a Ranger, a role puzzling game. That is the game where you are on a grid and it's a top-down game where you're moving on a grid, and as you move through the world world moves with you. So you're kind of like this weird like puzzle mechanics as movement. It really broke my brain, unfortunately, but that's coming out July 25th if you want to give that a chance. They showed off more Fear the Spotlight. They showed off Screenbound. Screenbound is that first-person 3D game where you are playing a Game Boy at the same time as a side-scroller. Looked just wild. Just looked absolutely wild. The idea that you're kind of playing two games at once. But really cool if you want to rub your stomach and pat your head at the same time. Zoochosis. Zoochosis, also a game I'm going to put up there as one of my most anticipated games. It is a horror game zookeeper, it's like a zookeeper management horror game where there is something wrong with you. Sign up to be a zookeeper, and you quickly discover that the animals have been infected and are turning into mutants. And kind of a first person horror game that looks fucking cool as hell. And also features different endings depending on player choices, because the game's all about you kind of running around the zoo, crafting and creating vaccines for the different animals. That's coming out to PC sometime this year. A game that has a demo out that I did not get a chance to play, but looks really cool. Also still creepy, but maybe not quite as creepy as Zoochosis, is Tom the Post Girl. Tom has a bad habit. She likes to snoop on her neighbors. And what she finds when she starts to stalking them is not always a wholesome or pleasant to observe. That is coming out in Q3 of 2025 if you want to check that out. Psychroma is the kind of cyberpunk horror game. Looks really neat. It is also a side-scrolling game. Really cool. But I gotta kind of quickly cover that because I want to talk about building relationships. Building relationships, also another game that I was really impressed by, and it's so stupid. It's so weird. It's such a oh god, how do you describe building relationships? Building relationship is a game where you play as a house, and you are navigating through a 3D environment, kind of like a 3D platformer. And you're rolling around as a physical house, and you talk to other houses and buildings in the environment. They don't quite call it a dating simulator, but you are trying to, form relationships and talk your way into the hearts of some of the other buildings in the area. Building relationships looks awesome. That'll be out on Steam later, at a later date. They didn't quite say. A little to the left is getting an update, focused on navigating through the stars, which looks really cool. Hello Again is what the hell is Hello Again? Oh, it's the time loop postal worker game that's coming to Steam in 2025. Looks really cool. What else did we have? That's kind of going to cover it in terms of what I saw at Day of the Devs. That looked pretty neat. We got the Future Showcase, Future Games Summer Showcase. We also have Xbox Showcase, and we have the Ubisoft Forward. We're going to take our first break of the show. We'll be right back. Stick around. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I continue to be GnittWitt, and we continue to be talking about the games that are coming out and have been announced and maybe even released in some cases. Really depends on, surprise release dates. There were some surprise release dates and stuff like that at Summer Game Fest, along with a couple other, surprise announcements, things like that. But we're going to keep going on as I hastily try to build a list of my most anticipated stuff. We'll maybe get to that list later on in the show. Like I told you, this is going to be a long one as we get through everything. So let's stop talking about it and start being about it. The Future Game Show happened. A lot of stuff was shown. That is from your friends and mine over at Games Radar. Some really neat stuff came out of that. Some stuff we already knew and things like that. But they kick things off showing off Bogdan's Cross, which is a action adventure game where you play as a bear. Coming to Steam and the Epic Game Store. They also showed off First Dwarf, which is a base building tower defense action game. Coming out on Steam Early Access June 19th. Another game that I would put on my list of things that I'm very curious about / interested in. Nobody Wants to Die. And I mean, I don't know if that statement's true. I'm sure some people, there has to be at least one person who's like, if it happened, it happened, right? But that is the cyberpunk detective thriller game. That's coming to PC and consoles this year. Very, very exciting about that. Detective Dotson. Detective Dotson is a kind of parkour adventure stealth game where you also are swapping disguises. So it kind of gave me Hitman without the violence vibes. There's a game for it on Steam right now. I did not get a chance to play it. That's coming to PC in 2024. They showed off more of Once Human. In Sync, not the band, but a cooperative puzzle solving game where players need to synchronize their movements and communicate to succeed. That's not my thing. That's not my thing. Dredge, the Iron Rig. There is something going on at this big oil rig in Dredge, and you're going to find out August 15th. They showed off Parcel Core. We're going to actually talk more Parcel Core at the later on in the show because I played a bunch of it. That is the delivery driver simulator where you are driving a bike, like a messenger bike. That's coming to PC and console September 3rd. Kind of this mix of like a Tony Hawk meets Crazy Taxi sort of scenario where like you can jump and grind and do tricks, but also you're trying to get through the open world from A to B to C to D as fast as possible, delivering stuff. We'll talk about more of that in a moment. Happy Bastards is the strategy game with gritty, gnarly combat. Looked a little wild, but it looked okay. They also showed off Relic, the First Guardian. I don't remember what the hell Relic, the First Guardian was, but that's coming to PlayStation and PC. Hell of an Office. Hell of an Office is a first-person platformer game where you're kind of running through hell as an office. That is coming to Steam Early Access. A lot of these games, as you know, are going to be, especially because they're indie games, are going to make their way to Steam and PC and Early Access and demos, and then most likely later be coming out on consoles. A new FBI detective simulator, The Operator, is coming out later this year. Deliver Us Home is the follow-up to Deliver Us Mars and Deliver Us Moon. That is coming to Kickstarter on June 11th. So if you want to, which has already happened, so if you want to help fund the game, you can do so over at Kickstarter. They showed off more of the Precinct, that is the sandbox rookie cop top-down RPG, coming out very, very soon. PC, PlayStation, and Xbox, August 15th. I'm going to put that on my list. I think that looks really neat. Duck Detective, The Secret Salami. If you want, it's out now on PC and Nintendo Switch, but it's going to be coming to mobile platforms later this year. You are a duck trying to solve crimes. Sacrifier is the kind of 90s inspired pixel RPG, is coming out soon. No actual hard date. But if you want to talk hard, it don't get any harder than this. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2. That is coming out everywhere. September 9th. That game looks badass. I never did finish that first Warhammer Space Marine game, but that looks like a hell of a game. Really looking forward to that. Goat Simulator 3, The Multiverse of Nonsense, is getting DLC update for June 19th. Eric's Home, The Stolen Dream, is the top-down stealth adventure game coming to PC and consoles. Run from Mummies is the tourism-themed dungeon crawler coming out pretty soon. PC and PlayStation 5 in fall. There's a demo out now. What else we got? Oh my god, there were so many things shown at the... Oh god, this list is so long. Maybe we're gonna have to whittle this down. We'll be here all day. Dustborn looked kind of neat. Very choices based, kind of a narrative choices based adventure game. Coming to PC and consoles August 20th. Toy Tactics, the physics-based real-time strategy game where you'll draw formations and command legions of endearing minifigures of soldiers into battle. That is out on PC. Numata is the suburban survival horror game from Deadbolt Interactive. Coming to PC, PlayStation, and Xbox summer 2024. I am always a sucker for a good horror game when one comes along. And brother, let me tell you, it's sure coming along. They showed off a couple updates for Starship Troopers Extermination. I've never played Starship Troopers Extermination. I think my only thing is that, like, in a world where, Helldivers 2 already exists and is incredibly popular and gives people that Starship Troopers experience, I don't know how much longer Starship Troopers Extermination is going to stick around for, but they were showing off some stuff with that game. They also showed more of the casting of Frank Stone from Your Friends and Mine at Behavior Interactive and Supermassive Games. Nico DeRico is a mascot platformer. If you're like, damn it, they just don't make enough Crash Bandicoot style games. Well, they are doing just that. Coming to PC and consoles. Bodycam looks fucked up. Really, really fucked up. It is the kind of hyper realistic first person shooter. But the idea is that you're playing from the perspective of like a body cam. Super wild. I don't quite know what else to say other than it looks like it's one of those first person shooters that kind of looks like weirdly disturbing and like fucked up. And that kind of does it for the Future Games Showcase. We're going to get to the showcase, the Xbox Showcase, and this is, I think, the showcase. And I really don't have the patience or the interest to be biased about fucking anything on this show, especially when it comes to who won the better, commercial contest. That's like giving a shit which was the best commercial during the Super Bowl. It doesn't fucking matter. But I think if you're someone who plays a lot of games, someone who tries to play a lot of different games, minus indie games, because Xbox really didn't have much to show from indie studios this year, I think the Xbox Showcase is probably the one to look out for and watch, right? I understand a lot of these games are exclusives. Not all of them are exclusives. Call of Duty's not an exclusive. Dragon Age is not an exclusive. Doom the Dark Ages is an exclusive. There were a variety of games that were not exclusives at that Xbox Showcase. But at the end of the day, you know, you can expect these games on Game Pass and Xbox and all that stuff. But with that said, I just think like as someone who wants to see a lot of different games out there, the Xbox One was the best one. It also has, in my opinion, the most exciting game, one of the most exciting games as well. They kicked things off showing a little bit of Black Ops 6, so they did save Black Ops 6 for the ending. That was kind of like where Starfield fit in last year. I also think that it worked better than the Starfield presentation from last year. Don't get me wrong. I was very, very excited about Starfield, and I think that what they showed last year was super cool. But also Starfield did not come out and set the world on fire. Maybe Black Ops 6 will. But speaking of fire and hell, Doom: The Dark Ages, a prequel to the modern Doom games. This time around, the Doom guy is in some sort of like dark fantasy, like dragons and castles and shit. He's also got a shield. In the other Doom games, he would be using a chainsaw, which to kind of cut up the enemies to regain ammo. This time around, he has a shield, and the shield has the chainsaw stuff around him, which is super neat. That game looks badass. I don't know what else to say other than Doom. I mean, look, more Doom. Sign me up for more. Hey, you know who likes Doom? This guy. Whether it's the rapper MF Doom or motherfucking Doom the video game, I like Doom. Coming out in 2025. I do gotta wait. That is also coming to PlayStation for those curious. A sequel to a game that I really should have played more of, State of Decay 3. That is the zombie apocalypse survival management game. So if you never played State of Decay, it is an open world zombie action game. But when you're not running around exploring for resources and crafting, you're also like building a base and managing your team members and teammates that all have their unique characteristics. It also kind of has that XCOM thing where like if you take people out of your base and go help you with different missions and they die, like that's it. They're permadeath, which is interesting. Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Now let's talk Dragon Age: The Veilguard for a moment. I already said my piece about the name of that game being changed from Dreadwolf to The Veilguard, and this trailer that they showed really went out of their way to tell you why they changed the name of the game, because it was all about the characters of Veilguard. It was all about showing off the different people that are going to be in your party and hanging out and chatting and fighting alongside you. And I didn't like the tone of this whatsoever. When I saw this, I was like, ew, like, why is it a game that's trying so hard to be cheeky and funny and has none of the chops to pull it out? Like it was like a bad version of that Dungeons and Dragons movie, right? Like it just really stunk of that. Unfortunately, I think the Dungeons and Dragons movie is very good. You should go watch it if you haven't seen it. But imagine if you watched that movie and it was like the worst movie you ever saw. That's how that Dragon Age: The Veilguard trailer came off as. However, we do have some more Dragon Age Veilguard news to talk about later, but that's what they showed, and I wasn't impressed when I saw it. As a sucker who bought the expansion for Starfield Shattered Space, they reminded me that game is coming out later this year. That is the expansion to Starfield. I guess kind of going off the House of Va'ruun faction, which makes a ton of sense. House Va'ruun. If you don't know House Va'ruun, it's one of the big like spooky factions in Starfield that there's not a lot to know about them. It's almost like they had to make an expansion to justify it, but also maybe going back to being more sci-fi horror, cosmic horror themed. There's also a free update for the game as well, featuring new content and things like that. Fallout 76 is still going along. They have announced their first new open map for the game, Skyline Valley, which allows people to go to Vault 63, and you'll also be able to play as a ghoul. Ghouls, I think, coming next year. Skyline Valley is coming out pretty dang soon. Throw this up here. as one of my most anticipated games. And I was not expecting this whatsoever. This is a brand new game. Claire Obscure Expedition 33 is a fantasy RPG inspired by French paintings. And it also seems like it's a turn-based combat game with a little bit of like button prompts. So if you think about something like, Paper Mario or South Park and all that stuff, it's turn-based, but you still can do like button, kind of time your button presses for combat to get bonuses and stuff like that. That looked really neat. I at first I was like, I don't know. But when I started thinking about like kind of what they were showing off in the fantasy and the vibes, I was like, you know what? Sign me up. Another game that looked neat, South of Midnight. They showed off a lengthy demo of stop motion animation style for the cutscenes. It's this lady and this big talking fish guy in the like what looks like Louisiana swamps, sort of thing. And then they showed off some combat. The combat looked pretty standard, like third person action combat. But you know what? Neat nonetheless. World of Warcraft is getting expansion August 26th, The War Within. We have more Blizzard news in just a moment. They showed off more trailer stuff for Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. That is the remake of Metal Gear Solid 3. Not much to show. Sea of Thieves is getting its 13th expansion going live July 25th. Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, which is coming out in July, is a game that I played, and I'll tell you more about it when we talk about the demos that I played. Age of Mythology, I'm a big Age of Empires guy. I love Age of Empires 2. I also think Age of Empires 4 is a pretty neat game. Age of Mythology is that real-time strategy game, but more influenced by mythology of like Greek mythology, Norse mythology, and Egyptian mythology. That is coming out September 4th. A game that I was not expecting to see at Summer Game Fest, but was shown off anyways, was Perfect Dark, and that game looks fucking dope. Your first person, spy hijinks meets first person shooter meets Deus Ex. No idea when the game's coming out, but that didn't stop it from looking cool nonetheless. Like, it was one of those games where like they saved the trailer till the very end and then like nothing, no date. Like, don't ask when this game's coming out. But from what I saw, it looked neat. And the winner for the most disgusting, gross, fucked up trailer that was shown that didn't involve Ken Jeong in a chicken suit goes to Diablo 4. Woo! That Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred trailer, good God. First of all, I think we can all agree that nobody does trailers or in-game or pre-rendered cinematics. Nobody does cinematics like Blizzard. You could maybe throw Square Enix in there and stuff like that. I know a lot of people were very, very happy about that. The Rockstar GTA 6 trailer, but for my money, I think I gotta give that crown to Blizzard. They make some fucking sick trailers, and when I mean sick, I mean that poor lady got her arms ripped up in some ways I didn't think an arm could be ripped apart. Good God. Vessel of Hatred, that is coming out October 8th. But it's also coming to PS5 and stuff like that, because Diablo is on PS5. Vessel of Hatred is their first expansion for Diablo 4. There have been free updates and stuff like that. This will be a paid expansion. Speaking of cheeky, funny British stuff, Fable was shown off. Somehow getting a release window of 2025. We'll see how that goes for them. Got the alarms and sirens going out outside my window for Fragpunk. Fragpunk is the first person shooter, 5v5 hero shooter with cards. It looked like the opposite of a game I'd want to play. Winterboro, the cute little mouse game, looked very cute and had a cute little mouse in it. That looked really neat. That's coming early 2025. Mixtape, another game with stop motion and skateboarding, and seems like kind of an adventure game, a teen, kind of teen dramedy style adventure game. That looked really neat. Great music in it. That's coming 2025. Flight Simulator 2024. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Flight Simulator 2024 looks fucking crazy. Like, when I first played the Flight Simulator now, I remember thinking, wow, this might be one of the most ambitious video games I ever played. And it's a flight simulator. Like, it's not like this life thing where it's like, oh, you could be whoever you want and do whatever you want. It's like, no, we have like perfected the simulation of flying in video games. And one of the cool things about Flight Simulator is that I've probably talked about this before, but Flight Simulator uses real map data to allow you explore the entire world in flying. So if you want to literally fly from YVR, which is the Vancouver airport, as an example, to JFK airport, to the Paris airport or whatever, you can do that in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Of course, you have a variety of different, planes and stuff like that to choose from. But like it is very much like here's the world and here's a bunch of planes and you can do multiplayer and stuff, but like there wasn't a lot of like challenges and like modes to Flight Simulator. So with Flight Simulator 2024, they said, all right, you want to actually like be able to like do stuff in Flight Simulator. Well, how about you become a cargo transport? How about you do some sightseeing? How about you take trips on an airport, private jet, agriculture, aviation, all this crazy stuff coming to Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024. That looked badass. A game that made me feel immediately old was the Elder Scrolls Online, because they announced that it's now 10 years old. I remember that when that game came out, and they showed off some Gold Road, which is out June 18th. But man, Elder Scrolls 10 years old. That's crazy. Life is Strange, double exposure. Max Caulfield, the protagonist from the original Life is Strange, is back. She has grown up from high school to now college, and her buddy has died, and she's going to try to use her time traveling powers to save the day. Coming out October 29th, 2024. Listen to me. I think Life is Strange is good. I think that first game is fantastic, and I didn't need to play another Life is Strange game after this. And I think bringing back Max isn't what I necessarily wanted out of another Life is Strange, because I just didn't need Life is Strange to turn into the kind of the like sci-fi fantasy adventure game series that it's turned into. But nonetheless, double exposure looks neat. I'm sure there are plenty of people who are very happy about more Life is Strange coming back October 29th. Indiana Jones. We're going to the Jones Zone. Man, what a fantastic looking game. Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Just awesome. Fantastic facial animation. Good looking Indiana Jones voiced by Troy Baker. That's coming out in 2024. No date for it, but hey, if you want to shoot Nazis in first person, leave it to the good folks at Machine Games, the folks who made the recent Wolfenstein games, to tell you how to make a good looking first person shooter adventure game with Indiana Jones. They showed off a lot of trailer stuff. Really funny, good antagonist stuff in Indiana Jones. Like if you told me that this was just based on a real deal Indiana Jones movie, like I think they have really nailed the indie vibe for sure. Indiana Jones, best indie game. Showing off at Summer Game Fest. They showed off more Mecha Break. Again, it's mechs and pilots and stuff. Wu Chang, Fallen Feathers was shown off. It is a kind of monster hunter, gross action game. Looks kind of Souls-like. It looks like a lot of third-person adventure games. Third-person action games. I don't know what to tell you. They showed off some more Avowed. That's from Your Friends and Mine and Obsidian, the first-person, first-person action RPG. That's coming out in 2024. I don't love what I've seen of Avowed, but it's coming to Game Pass. I'm willing to give it a chance. Atomfall is supposed to be a weird fantasy first-person post-apocalyptic shooter of some kind. That's coming out 2025. That looked actually really neat. That looked cool. A game that I was immediately excited to check out, but the more I've seen of it, the less excited I've been, is Assassin's Creed Shadows. They showed off some brief story stuff and then saved more of it for the Ubisoft event, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. Stalker 2, that's from the good folks over at what the hell is the name of that studio called again? The people who made the Stalker 2 is one of those crazy games where it was made it's from the GSC Game World, are the folks that are making Stalker 2. And if you don't know GSC Game World, they're based in Ukraine, and they have had to literally move their studio, and the game has been interrupted by the ongoing illegal military invasion of Russia in Ukraine. So a game that has been made under extraordinary circumstances. It is a first-person post-apocalyptic shooter. I think it looked really neat. I also appreciated that they did not use English for the trailer. Really, I think brings the vibe and stuff like that for it. I'm assuming it will have. Did it have English? Let me remind her. Did it? Just watching this trailer again. No, it didn't. It did not have English, which I think really adds to the vibe of the game. That looks super neat. I'm going to add that to my list. They also did a hardware refresh for the Xbox Series X and S. They have a new all digital Series S. They're also getting a 1 terabyte Series S and a 2 terabyte Series X. And then the final game that they showed before they did Black Ops was Gears of War E-Day. This is a prequel to Gears of War, showing young Marcus Phoenix and young Dom as the locusts are rising up. And that looked really cool. There wasn't a lot to go off of, mostly just story stuff, in-engine, whatever they want to call it. But I'm excited about the idea of like a Gears of War prequel. They are swearing that they are not abandoning the story that was set up in Gears of War 4 and 5. I don't know how that's possible, but I'm sure there'll be something that explains why. Gears of War 4 and 5 had to happen with Gears of War E-Day connecting it. Kind of how they did that with some of the Metal Gear prequels. And then they did their about 20-ish minute long Call of Duty Black Ops 6 trailer. And if you know anything about me, you know that I'm someone who can take or leave Call of Duty depending on, you know, what game it is. Like there are some games of Call of Duty that I absolutely love. There are some Call of Duty games I skipped entirely. There's some Call of Duty games I played that I don't think are very good. So, you know, I came into this Call of Duty Black Ops 6 announcement being like, well, it can't be any worse than what I saw of Modern Warfare 3. And, but I'm also someone who really enjoyed Call of Duty Black Ops 1, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I didn't love Black Ops 3. I did not like Black Ops 4. Black Ops 4, if you remember, was the game that did not have any campaign story mode in it. It was all multiplayer. And they were going for that hero shooter ability focused multiplayer. Just terrible. I never played Black Ops Cold War, but here we are now with Black Ops 6. And holy shit, does Black Ops 6 look badass. Wow. They're talking the talk. I hope Treyarch can walk the walk because in my humble opinion, Black Ops 6, one of the most excited I was for any game shown off during Summer Game Fest. That game looks fantastic. You know, kind of talking about the variety of missions that you're going to be able to go on, the different types of things, the dynamic, you know, kind of missions in the game and how you can approach the missions in different ways. Do you want to be stealthy, guns blazing, whatever? And then they also showed off a lot of stuff as it pertains to the movement in that game. So they've introduced something called the Omni Movement System, Omni Direction, Omni Movement. I forget what they exact call it, but it's the idea that you can run in one direction and look in a different direction. And Call of Duty right now is a first-person shooter. If you turn, you are moving in that direction. But in Black Ops 6, it's this idea that like, oh, I can, you know, if I lay prone on my stomach, I can turn around and aim behind me while still moving backwards. They also showed off a lot of examples where you're diving through the air. So you're diving sideways. You're diving in one direction, aiming in the other. Super, super cool. You know, they're really advertising it as going to be this like kind of action hero sort of vibe. And that applies to both the multiplayer and the single player. That looked really neat. I think they didn't talk a ton about the multiplayer. They're going to save that for a later event. But what they showed of Black Ops 6, I think, looked really neat. And I think one of the things I was thinking about as we were kind of going through Summer Game Fest in general is these games are not finished, right? So the way you can market and advertise an unfinished product is different than the way you'd probably market and advertise something that you can physically go and buy and engage with right now. Let me explain. You've probably heard this before, but you know, it's the idea that you sell the steak or you sell the sizzle, right? The problem is that in video games, in order to sell people the sizzle, you need to show them the steak. So that's why I didn't really give that much of a shit about the Gears of War E-Day trailer, because it was just a cutscene. They didn't show any of the actual game. Like, there are so many games shown off at the Summer Game Fest that it's like, I don't fucking care. I don't give a shit about what they showed. The game could be amazing. I have no idea, because they didn't show any actual gameplay. And that's the problem with showcasing and marketing unfinished games, is like, the game might not look anything like the trailer. You would have no idea. But in the case of something like Gears of War, and plenty of other games as well, they showed off a lot of gameplay. So it's this thing of like, they're trying to sell you the promise of what that game can be, while literally showing you, you know, as much of the game as they can in order to convince you of what it's going to be. There's still every possibility that when you fire up Black Ops 6, that movement is not like anything as they described it, anything they showed it off as. That doesn't work. It's fucked up. It's hallucinating. It's trippy. It's weird. I don't know. But when I think about a lot of what Xbox showed, I think when they tried to sell you the sizzle, it was enough to keep you to maintain interest or build interest if you didn't already have so in the game. And the real meat of the content for real games that they had to show looked really good. And then it just happened to have a variety of different games. So like when I say like Xbox had probably the best showcase, it's not that I'm excited to, you know, get all these games on Game Pass, which I think helps. Like, I think it's undeniable to be like, oh, Indiana Jones looks fucking awesome, and I don't have to buy it, and it's just coming to Game Pass. That's a great sell. I don't care who you are. But when you show off that Indiana Jones game, like you watch the cutscenes and you're like, oh yeah, this feels like I'm watching an Indiana Jones game or Indiana Jones movie. And then you show, you know, him whipping dudes and punching Nazis, and you're like, oh yeah, this also looks like a fun game to play. Sells the steak, sells the sizzle. And I think that's what, you know, Microsoft has done a very good job of this time around. And I think there was no better example of that than something like Indiana Jones or something like Black Ops, where you're like, I physically see how the game is operating, and they're, you know, kind of writing these checks and making these promises about what the game will also be on top of that. And I think that's what helped make the Xbox showcase such a success. Oh man. And then there's another company by the name of Ubisoft, and they also want to sell you the steak and the sizzle. However, they have run into a problem where sometimes, how would I put it? Sometimes they don't know how to do it. So Ubisoft is the Ubisoft Forward event very much leaning into this idea that like, this is like a show. This is like a production. We're going to have, you know, fancy camera cuts when our developers are on stage talking. We're going to have an orchestra and all of this stuff. They're going to put on a goddamn show just to show you something like Star Wars Outlaws. And they showed Star Wars Outlaws, and they showed the gameplay of Star Wars Outlaws. And the more I saw the gameplay for Star Wars Outlaws, the more I started to think that I was more excited about that game when I knew less about it. They showed off a couple of things with shooting and running and getting on your speeder bike and you know, stuff like that. They also showed off the ability for you to get in your ship and fly off the planet and just be in outer space just from the planet, which is different than something like Starfield, where it's a separate loading screen. But it just didn't do anything for me. It really didn't. And I feel so bad because like I've talked about Star Wars in the past. I would love to play a Han Solo rogue type Star Wars game. I think there's a lot of fun to be had in that. And I think the reason for that is because the other elements of Star Wars have been so well represented in other Star Wars games. You think about Star Wars Battlefront. Okay, in Star Wars Battlefront, it's basically Star Wars Battlefield. So if you really want to play the role of a clone trooper, as a battle droid, as a stormtrooper, and just be in the trenches, shooting those guns and acting out literal Star Wars, like those are the games for you, right? If you really want to be that, X-Wing TIE fighter pilot, they already have that game out there. And if you want to be a Jedi, they keep making Star Wars games that are literally called Star Wars Jedis. So this idea that like Ubisoft sees a need for that, kind of rogue scoundrel experience, I think is awesome. That's exactly the type of Star Wars game we probably need. But from everything I saw, it didn't really blow me away, which is unfortunate because Assassin's Creed Shadows also really didn't blow me away. When I think about what I want out of an Assassin's Creed game, one of the things that I want is versatility in the approaches to combat and stealth, which Assassin's Creed is literally trying to provide in the form of you being able to play as Yasuke and Naoi, the Naoi being the stealthy shinobi and Yasuke being the powerhouse samurai. But if I fuck up stealth, I want to be able to fight my way out of it, which they didn't necessarily show off, which means that if I want to have it both ways, maybe I need to lean into, being underpowered as Naoi, or maybe not being as stealthy as Yasuke. But either way, like, and I really don't want to compare it to something like Ghost of Tsushima or all these other games, but like, it looked exactly what you can expect from an Assassin's Creed game. Maybe a little more stealth than in past years, but it just also was pretty flat, unfortunately. They showed off Prince of Persia. Their Lost Crown is getting some content updates. The Rogue Prince of Persia also getting some content updates. And then Ubisoft did the thing that I told nobody to do. I said, don't do this. Don't say anything. But they said it anyways. Ubisoft had a trailer that showed fucking nothing but some candles. And they said the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. And then 2026. And now I'm just more annoyed than ever that they have to remind me about a game that is nowhere close to coming out. But, oh well. They also showed off some Avatar. Avatar is getting some content updates. X-Defiant is getting an update. And Anno 117 Pax Romana is coming out in 2025. That is the Roman, kind of management simulator, which looks neat as well. I thought Ubisoft in general was maybe one of the most boring showcases around. I just felt like the games that I would have been the most excited about from Ubisoft disappointed. And there was not much else for me to really kind of lean into. Oh, the crew, like, I don't give a fuck about them adding another island to the crew. I'm sure somebody cares about the crew. It just sure as hell ain't me. So that's why I say that like the Xbox showcase was pretty good. I thought the Future Games show was pretty good. I think for me, for my money, I thought Day of the Devs and Xbox and the regular Summer Games Showcase were probably some of the better ones. Future Game was good too. I'm not here to pick on Future Games. I just thought Ubisoft was pretty weak. Was pretty weak overall. I wasn't in love with what Ubisoft had to offer, which is disappointing. We're going to take another break. When we come back, we're going to finish up the news. Stick around. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the podcast. Dragon Age the Veilguard. They showed off some gameplay for that on Tuesday. You should go check out that gameplay because as much as I've been maybe a little critical of the presentation of Dragon Age, the name change, I was actually pretty happy with what I saw gameplay wise. I think, I hate to say it, but, the good folks at BioWare might just be cooking. They might just be cooking with the Veilguard. Fun combat, good, gorgeous settings and environment. Again, I can't stress enough. I was like, they showed off like 20 minutes of gameplay, and honestly, like, you know, all the dialogue choices, like you should go check out Dragon Age: The Veilguard because it looked pretty good. They also kind of talked about them moving away from the open world format into something that is more of a linear experience, similar to, like, you know, Dragon Age 1 and 2. Dragon Age Inquisition is a massive open world game. There's just like a zillion goddamn things to do and all that stuff, which is cool. They also talked about how, like, in Dragon Age, you know, in the other Dragon Age games, you can romance your party. You can, you know, form romantic relationships and stuff like that. But in the past, the game was kind of pretty open in terms of like how you could do that. So you could kind of just like romance your way through a lot of the different people in your party over the course of one game. In Dragon Age: The Veilguard, they're changing the way the romance works so that if you spend too much time courting another party member, if you spend too much time trying to romance somebody, another potential partner may just move on and maybe become romantic interest with somebody else, which is, I think, is really neat. I think the idea that, like, you know, I hate to describe it like this, but like, you know, in Friends, they also start dating each other and all this stuff, right? I think that's kind of an interesting idea for something like an RPG where you would be able to, in theory, get with one character over the other, but if you choose one over the other, that other one might move on with somebody else. The other thing is, because you're creating characters, you know, things like gender and sexuality and stuff like that may also play a part in the potential romance options you have, which I think is really cool as well. Metallica is coming to Fortnite. These are the same people that tried to sue Napster back in the day, and now they want to, you know, kick it with the kids, and what the kids are into is Fortnite. So Metallica is headlining Fortnite. It's going to be part of the new music-themed battle mode, as well as a concert. Yeah. That's fucking crazy. But hey, if you wanna hang out with Metallica, listen, I'm not shitting on Metallica. I just think, like, when I think about, you know, Metallica, I don't think Fortnite, right? However, if you want to check out the Fortnite concert, there will be concerts happening between June 22nd and June 23rd. That's going to be happening. Yeah, like I said, there's a couple of shows they're doing. They're going to do a couple shows on June 22nd. A couple shows they're doing June 23rd, if that is your thing. And now we're going to talk about the games that I have been playing. So there's a ton of demos out now on Steam Next Fest. Check your PlayStation for other, you know, and your Xbox for demos to a lot of the games shown. But that's what I tried to do, is I tried to play a lot of games. I am not very far in Ghost of Tsushima. We're not going to talk Ghost of Tsushima because, oh God, there's just a lot to get to. So let's kick things off with Parcel Core. Parcel Core, like I talked about, is that you know, kind of sports action game, you know, kind of a Tony Hawk on a bike sort of thing. Parcel Core is the bike messenger game. And, you know, on paper, it looks really cool. You know, you can, you know, you're riding your bike. It's this very free flowing, control set in terms of jumping off ramps, sliding, riding along walls and all of that stuff. Unfortunately, I think the controls in Parcel Core are just a little too stiff. Like, there were so many times when I would get turned around or I'd run into something and I would lose all momentum, and I would really struggle with turning the bike around and navigating through the world. Like, if you haven't mastered the controls, you might struggle with, you know, navigating the bike. I'd also say that you might also struggle with, you know, kind of learning the world, because in a game like Tony Hawk, or, you know, in a game like Crazy Taxi, like, half the fun is finding those shortcuts of, like, okay, I can get from A to B really quickly. I can do this. I can take this turn. I can ride along this wall. I can cut through this corner, whatever, while also doing tricks and stunts and all that stuff. But I think in a scenario where, you know, you need to learn how to navigate the world with really stiff, kind of unresponsive controls, I just think Parcel Core ends up being more frustrating than it's worth, to be honest. I was not quite pleased with my time playing Parcel Core. Gorgeous art style, very vibrant world, cool, you know, cool vibes and all that stuff. Like it seems neat. But once I got my hands on it, I was like, I don't know if this is really for me. That was shown as part of the Future Games show. Old School Rally. If you look up pictures for Old School Rally, you're going to be like, oh, this is a PlayStation 1 rally game. And that's exactly what they're going for. But it's going to be coming to early access on Steam sometime later this year. So keep that in mind, that this is also a very, very unfinished game. They have nailed the look. They've nailed the menus. They have nailed everything that you would come to expect from an old school rally racing game circa something like the PlayStation 1, right? I think the problem that I ran into with Old School Rally is that it's a little too loose. It's a little too squirrely. You think about, gripping sand, you think about gripping rocks and gravel and all this stuff. And I never felt like the road conditions made a difference while operating the car, the rally machine. And I would just feel like it was too easy to overturn and oversteer and stuff like that. Unfortunately, but I really like what it's going for. And if they can tighten up those, the controls and tighten up some of the driving, I think they'd really have something on their hands, because I'm always down for a good rally game, and one that is very evocative of that PS1 style. Seems neat. Parcel Core, for those wondering, definitely going for more of a PS2 style, extreme sports action game sort of vibe. Aero GPX, another game very inspired by the PlayStation 1 games of yore. This time, Aero GPX leading into something like Wipeout. So hyper fast racing, future racing style game with huge jumps on this racetrack, huge jumps and turbo boost and all of that stuff, and kind of this idea that like you're drifting at like 1,000 kilometers an hour around these wicked turns and stuff like that. I was actually pretty happy with Aero GPX. I thought Aero GPX was quite fun in terms of big jumps and boosts and flying through the air, and it's got a really good style and vibe to it. I think they really nailed, again, that sort of Wipeout style, but the idea is that it's a little more lower polygon, very high resolution, like it's very clear looking, but pretty basic, kind of geometry and style compared to something like Redout and Fast Remix and stuff like that. Aero GPX, I thought was pretty neat. I'm quite happy with it. Victory Rally. I'm sorry. I'm also going to refer to these games. Victory Heat Rally, is the name of the game. And also very, 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 very much going for a PS1 style, action, sort of arcade racer. Very much the idea is that you're going to be drifting around corners and turns for boost, and stuff like that. And I thought it was just super cute and a lot of fun. Very, very impressive. Again, kind of reminded me of MotorTune Grand Prix for the PlayStation 1. That's out later this year. I'm pretty happy with what I played of that. I think it's got there's a good grippy nature to the cars. There's not a lot of oversteering, not a lot of understeering. You can customize the cars to be like, I want more power but less I want more top speed but less acceleration. I want more grip but maybe less braking and stuff like that. Really neat. I want better speed, but I want less handling. I want more weight, but less acceleration. Stuff like that. Really, really cool. Very happy with Victory Heat Rally. That is one for me to look out for sure. One of the big games shown at the Xbox showcase was Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn. And it is very much going for that sort of Souls-like action game. You are part of this like army resistance group fighting the undead. The undead might be controlled by these like demigods, and it is, if I can compare it to other games, it is Bloodborne because you have the pistol, which doesn't do a lot of damage. You instead use the pistol in your attacks to interrupt other enemy attacks. So this idea of like, oh, this enemy's winding up for their attack. If you attack at just the right moment, that enemy's attack will be interrupted. And it also is very linear. You're going through kind of these levels, traversing through these levels. So I would really describe it as like Bloodborne meets like a God of War meets like a Jedi Survivor type thing. I didn't love what I saw. I don't think graphically it really stood out in one way or the other. It just kind of seemed okay. Kind of lifeless in terms of the world. Like when you think about God of War, if you think about Bloodborne, you think about these really rich worlds with tons of stuff to interact with and see and do. And I didn't see that much in the Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn demo, but you know what? Hey, maybe that game will return out to be something quite cool. I know that's coming to Game Pass and other services and stuff like that. Flintlock, the Siege of Dawn, for those curious, is coming out July 18th. So that's actually pretty darn soon. Super short demo, like super short. Like there was not much for me to even really sink my teeth into. But I played Elation for the Wonder Box 6000, which is a first-person adventure game. You're walking around, talking to people, you're interacting with stuff in the environment. This demo is like 5-10 minutes long. Like it's super short. And it made an incredible impression on me. I thought it was so weird. Very low resolution art style. Like we're talking like grungy, like super grungy PS1 era graphics. But it's got tremendous writing. It seems to be a game about video games, which usually I don't necessarily need in my games, but very funny writing and art style and stuff to it. There's you're exploring kind of your house, and there's a bunch of beer cans by your bed. And like when you look at the beer cans, the description's like, empty beer cans that, I now refer to as tiny trash cans or something like that. And I think that was kind of fun. Very short, very weird. I'm assuming that's PC only, but, we'll see. World's Worst Handyman. Played some World's Worst Handyman, and, the easiest way to describe it is a top-down stealth puzzle adventure game, very much like an Untitled Goose Game. So this idea that you are exploring the environment, combining items together to get keys to unlock doors, you're sneaking around people. Very goofy, very silly. I just found it maybe a little frustrating. I also found Untitled Goose Game to be kind of a frustrating game in terms of like, oh, I don't know what this game wants me to do. I don't know what this game is, how I solve this puzzle, but, World's Worst Handyman seems neat. But I didn't love it. Again, that kind of top-down puzzle adventure game. One of my most anticipated games is Thank Goodness You're Here, which is the side-scrolling adventure platformer. Very much leading into that cheeky style of British humor. It is cartoon animated and all that stuff. It's also it's also got voice acting in it. So it's not just reading the text. And I would say Thank Goodness You're Here also taking kind of influence from something like a World's Worst Handyman, also taking influence from something like a Untitled Goose Game. The difference is that there's not nearly as many puzzles. It's pretty easy to figure out what it is that you're trying to do. And usually you are interacting with the world to get some sort of joke out of it. So there's a part where you are exploring the town, and you come across a guy who's got his hand stuck in this like grate. And he's like, hey, I need help getting the grate. And you explore the town, and you eventually notice that like the bakery is closed. So you do a couple of things to solve some puzzles to open the bakery. And once you open the bakery, the townspeople are like, oh, just get whatever you want out of the bakery. No problem. You find the butter, and you slip on the butter, and it slides all the way through town. and then lands perfectly at the guy who's got his hands stuck in the grate. And then he's like, "Oh, thanks, lad. You're so cool." And then, you kind of grease him up, and then, he opens up the sewer, and then away you go doing other stuff. There's a part where you're exploring beer, like you're swimming in beer. It's, I think, really neat. I think it's very, very cute. Got a fantastic art style. Another game that I'm like really looking forward to, kind of on top of everything. And then a game that was shown at the Summer Game Fest. And you might be thinking, no, it wasn't, but it was very, very briefly shown. Buckshot Roulette. Buckshot Roulette is a game that was shown at Summer Game Fest when they were showing off some of the most popular games on Steam, some of the most highest selling games on Steam. And Buckshot Roulette is exactly how it sounds. It is a Russian roulette game, but with a twist. Well, there's actually a couple of twists. Now, this is a full game that I bought. I think it was like $3 or $4. I bought it just recently, and I didn't get a chance to play until now. This is probably like the full game that I played this year. Full game I played this week, which is Buckshot Roulette. So what Buckshot Roulette is a first-person Russian roulette game. It's a very, very simple premise. You wake up in the bathroom of some fucked up weird club. You walk through the door. You walk across into this dingy, dark room where this mysterious figure with a mysterious character with a disfigured face asks you if you want to play Russian roulette with a shotgun. And the rules of the game are pretty simple, but there's some fun twists on it. So it's a turn-based, Russian roulette style game with a shotgun. So at the start of each round, it tells you how many shotgun shells are in the gun and how many of them are blank. So at the very start, it'll be like, there are 3 shells in the shotgun, 2 are blank, and 1 is a live round. And the way that it works is that you and the mysterious figure have a certain amount of health, right? Each shot does 1 damage. So you'll have 3, you'll have 3 health, he'll have 3 health, whatever. And each shot with the shotgun does 1 damage, right? So when you take turns, you can either shoot yourself, or if you want to risk it, you can shoot, or one way or the other, you can shoot the other person. So there are times when, you are aiming the shotgun at yourself, and there's, depending on how many live rounds and how many blank rounds are in the gun, there's a certain chance that you'll either kill yourself or shoot yourself and do 1 damage to yourself, or you will, whatever, it'll be blank, whatever, right? So there's this really fun risk reward of like, oh God, how many shells are still left in this gun? Am I going to successfully shoot them if I aim at them, or am I going to shoot myself? And then you kind of go back and forth, right? So there is a couple of things. So like if you take the gun and you shoot yourself and it's an empty round, you get an extra turn. You get an extra turn because you didn't damage your opponent, but you also didn't damage yourself. So there's kind of this perk of like, hey, take the shot on yourself, because you never know. You might empty that round and have it be blank so you can shoot your opponent the next time. But it is turn-based, so they'll take turns going back and forth with it. But the other thing is that there are some items in the game that really change up the flow of the game. There's an item in the game that you can use that skips your opponent's turn. So you actually handcuff them to the table for 1 turn. And then, so you can, do whatever, how you can take your turn however you want. There's an item in the game that's a beer. You chug a beer and then you rack the shotgun and dislodge whatever shell is in there. There's an item that is a magnifying glass, and it allows you to see into the shotgun what shell is in there right now, and for you to make a turn. There's a handsaw. If you use the handsaw, it saws off the barrel of the shotgun. For 1 turn, it does double the damage. So it'll do 2 damage instead of 1. And there's also a cigarette. There's cigarettes, which gives you 1 health back. There's also a psychoactive drug you can take, where it has a 50% chance of giving you 2 health. Was it 50% chance of giving you 2 health? And if it's not, you lose 1. And it is a 50% chance of you getting 2 health back, or you would lose 1 health. Like, it's kind of this risk reward system. And I only played it for like 45 minutes last night. And it's fucking rad. Like it is a deceptively simple gambling strategy game, a really dark art style, really grungy, fucked up art style, a tremendous sense of like humor. Like at the start of it, they make you sign a liability form and you write your name in it. And it's again, there's not a lot to it, but what is there is just so much fun. I was like, this might be one of the coolest games I have played all year. Is this buckshot roulette? It's a lot of fun. And then once you beat it, so basically, it's 3 rounds. Each game has 3 rounds, but if you lose, you have to start over. So you basically just start the game over, starting at round 1 if you lose. But if you kill the faceless Russian the dealer, if you kill the dealer, then it starts the second round. So I basically made it through all 3 rounds without dying in one successful run. And then you win a bunch of money. Spoilers for the end of the game. You win a bunch of money. And then you drive off with the shotgun and all the money. And then the game ends, and then it says double or nothing ? And the double or nothing mode increases the stakes, makes it a little more difficult, but also adds more items to the mix to really change up the gameplay. I cannot recommend Buckshot Roulette enough. I was like, this is a fucked up, weird ass video game, and it just is so striking for what it's trying to go for. Like literally, I beat the game. I think this game's like, it's like $4 on Steam. It's like $4 on Steam, and I beat it in like less than an hour. I have not beaten Double or Nothing because Double or Nothing is a hell of a lot harder of a mode from what I've seen. I think those items really throw you off in some ways, but damn, what a cool ass game that Buckshot Roulette is. One of my favorite games so far of this year, probably something we're going to talk about later on in the year because I was just blown away. We're going to take one more break, and when we come back, I'm going to run down my favorite games shown at Summer Game Fest. This is the final break. Stick around. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. I have composed a list of damn near everything that I saw that I would say I am pretty positive and excited on. Kicking things off, Metaphor. Again, that's the game from the folks at who made Persona. I think that game has a lot of potential, and also I think a new game from the Persona folks, not another Persona game, I think has a potential to be really neat, interesting, and probably even introduce some new ideas that will later come back to the Persona series. That game looks fantastic. Metaphor, I should have also gotten the release dates for all that stuff. But I might just need you to check that out if you get the chance. Power Rangers Rita's Rewind. Again, going for that retro beat 'em up style game, but I think with a lot of meat on that bones to potentially be really cool. Killer Bean, just an absurd, wacky action game. I really hope it sticks the landing. We will find out. Wanderstop, hey, if you're telling me the folks that made Stanley Parable and the Beginner's Guide are going to make a weird tea shop management game that has some dark overtones to it, sign me up. The First Descendant. I am a sucker for some looter shooter stuff. So give it to me straight. Skate. One of, I would say, if we were to do a kind of a top 5, I would put Skate in that top 5. I would also put Blumhouse Games in that top 5 as well. Just everything Blumhouse showed, I would put in a top 5 as well. Karma: The Dark World. That's the first person horror game from those coming out soon. UFO 50, the multi game in one pack, kind of harkening back to the Nintendo and Super Nintendo style games. Also good. I'm going to remove Fear of the Spotlight because I'm just putting Blumhouse games all in one. Zoochosis, again, that's the first person zoo management horror game. Building Relationships, that's the house rolling around as a house game. That looks really cool. The Precinct, the top-down action cop game, sure, I bet playing as a cop would be fun. Warhammer 40k Space Marine 2, brother, that game looks violent and wild as hell, and I cannot wait to check that out, but I do need to play through the first game because I feel like I got to catch up on the story. A game that I would say is in my top 5 is without a doubt Call of Duty Black Ops 6. What they showed really sold me on what that game is all about. I know that's also out later this year. I cannot wait to check it out. And again, this is why I would say like the Xbox One, in my opinion, is because like a lot of the games that I saw, I was like, I would like to play that game. Yes, let me play that game. So far, in terms of most anticipated games, we got Skate, we got Blumhouse, we got Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, Doom, The Dark Ages. I'm really looking forward to that. Can't wait to play that game. State of Decay 3. I need to play 2, but I'm willing to see what the third game has to offer. I'm going to say my number 4 most anticipated games coming out of Summer Game Fest is Dragon Age The Veilguard. Go watch that gameplay. I think it looks fantastic. Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Turn-based style combat is not typically my thing, but I'm willing to give it a chance for a look at some fantastic classic French paintings. Looking forward to that. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater. Of course, Metal Gear Solid 3. Everyone loves Metal Gear Solid 3. I never loved the controls and the way Metal Gear Solid 3 played, so this remake could be the perfect thing for me. Perfect Dark is still got a long ways to go, but what they showed looks pretty neat. Diablo 4 Vessel of Hatred. I'm willing to get back into Diablo 4. They just got to give me a really good reason to do so, and Vessel of Hatred seems like just the thing. Fable, similar to Perfect Dark, a long ways to go, but they seem to be on the right path, even though that game was mostly story-based footage. And then my number 5 most anticipated game from this year is Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Again, this is just stuff shown at Summer Game Fest. That doesn't include stuff like Thank Goodness You're Here and other things like that as well. But Indiana Jones, the Great Circle, man, hey, listen, I trust the good folks at Machine Games to make a good Nazi killing game, and what better way to do that than with Indiana Jones? That is going to do it for the podcast today. This has been a bit of a long one, and I appreciate you sticking it out with me. I have been GnittWitt. Again, go check out all that stuff if you haven't had a chance. And again, I really would say, like, I really changed my tune on Dragon Age The Veilguard when I saw that gameplay trailer. So if you get a chance, check that out. I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt. That is GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, Instagram, Threads. I am all over the place, and we will see you all next week. Happy Summer Game Fest, everybody. We made it. We will probably do this all over again at Gamescom. We'll see you then, but we'll even see you before that next week. Take it easy.